Thanks.
Hi, everybody. This is Rachelle Rocha. I'm the pharmacist here at Seasons Pharmacy. We're in the Book Nook today at the Seasons Pharmacy. Who knew we had a Book Nook? But we do. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing a new friend that I just made recently. It's always the connection of a connection, right? And so we met because Dan Green did a meditation workshop here, and you know Dan from ARC because that's where you do some...
She teaches yoga. Yeah.
She teaches yoga, and you like to do some rock climbing.
I do.
So you came to a meditation class, and it was fantastic. I love her meditation class. It's active meditation because my brain is hard to turn off. So I need the kind of active meditation that Dan does. But then I learned that Matthieu here has written a book, and it's called Light from Darkness.
Thank you so much.
And I'm like, oh, what's that all about? And so we've been chatting a little bit about why you wrote this book and what your life's journey has been like and some of the exciting projects that you've done. And I said to him, well, at Seasons Pharmacy, I always introduce new authors because if somebody's written a book and actually finished one, like a lot of people can think about, oh, I'm going to write a book one day. And to actually finish a book, like that's a big deal. And so I'm proud to say that I think you're the fourth author I've had here do book signings.
Sweet.
Sudbury's got some pretty amazing artists, like musical artists and graphic artists, but also artists who write books. So he didn't know that we would do that kind of thing here at Seasons Pharmacy because...
It's kind of synchronistic. Like it just kind of like, boom. I was looking for a place to do a book launch, and then this was just happened. It was perfect, you know?
So our book launch officially is on March 23rd.
Yeah,
Saturday.
come
March
party,
23rd.
March 23rd.
Yeah, so he's going to actually be here. You can meet the author. But we thought we would do a little introduction to the book and let people know that it's available here now. And what would be nice is if you're interested, you could read the book between now and then so that when you meet Matthieu on the 23rd of March, which is a Saturday, then you'll have something really cool to talk about. So he gifted me a book on my way to, I was going to Sweden to visit my kid. There's a lot of planes involved with that. And a lot of time in airports. And so on the way to Sweden, I read your book cover to cover.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
and I
very
finished
big
it
compliment.
before
Thank
I
you.
landed. I think I might have had like a few pages in the last chapter to finish when I
Wow.
got there. And I can tell you that I was really captivated. And so I want to sort of pass the floor to you to tell me a little bit, like introduce your book.
Sure.
Introduce a little bit about it and how they can get a book here and what special availability there is on these books for
Sure, yeah.
So let's start
at
there.
first I didn't know how to describe it when people are like, what's your book about? And now I just own it. I say it's a book about me dealing with my shit.
Well, we all got some of that.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of just look at it all head on. I think that's the main idea of the book is we've all had some hard things happen in our life. All have some difficult things. And it's in the story you tell yourself in your mind. So I struggle with mental health, and I used to really like shame myself. Then you're suffering because you're suffering. And so you have all this extra there. But you could switch the story, and now you're using that same part to heal yourself and heal other people. So it's to make light come from that darkness. It's there anyways, so you may as well tell yourself a story that empowers you and helps you and helps other people.
Well, the thing is, we spend a lot of time in our head. Mm-hmm. And what we tell ourselves all the time, that's going to mostly come true. And so if we spend time in the dark part, and I mean, we all have to travel through that dark part to get to the light part. And you know, I just love the way your book captures that because it's a darkly colored book. And here we have water reflecting on the darkness, casting light. And it doesn't take a lot of light sometimes if it's really dark.
Just
for the light to make a huge impact.
100%. So the point, I wrote it for myself for healing and for catharsis, to kind of, it's there and now it's here, so I don't have to carry it there anymore. And also to do just that, to just give hope. Because when you're in that deep dark place, especially for the first time, you don't know you can get better. So you know what despair feels like, and sometimes that's all it takes for you to start healing is the belief that you can, you know. So just the belief that you can heal, if I could give that to somebody, that would be huge. If I can give that to one person, I'll consider the book a smash and success.
Well, what I find interesting about the light on water here. So, who took this picture, or how did you get this picture? Is there a story? I never asked you about the picture.
There's a story behind the
What's the story behind the
picture.
picture?
So my friend Pat took a great shot of me swimming. This is not the shot, but he took a great shot of me swimming on Lake Wanapitei.
Yeah.
And it's me swimming as the sun's rising. And it's pretty much this. But I wanted that picture, but the photo quality wasn't good enough to blow it up and put it on the cover. So we kind of inspired, that was the inspiration behind it. And then we took a stock photo, and Sherry, my editor, kind of played around to make it. We tried to replicate that photo.
Yeah,
the first photo, I was like swimming in the darkness. You couldn't see me unless you knew I was there. So I really wanted that picture. But we kind of basically recreated it.
So there's water is a really important part of the story and about your healing journey. And so I'd like for you to go through, maybe not spend too much time in the darkness, but how'd you get yourself out, and how did water play a role for you, and swimming in particular? How did that kind of come about? And
I've had more than one hard period in my life, you know. So I think each time it's something different that pulls me out, you know. So swimming was the latest one. I started swimming because I broke my foot. So I broke my foot just like derpily at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then how do you stay active? Well, it was swimming, you know. So I hopped in the pool with a healing broken foot. And I was not good. When I first started swimming, people were laughing at me at the pool because I was just dying to make it like a single pool length, you know. But it was the only way I could stay fit and active. So being fit, physical exercise, like a huge coping mechanism for me. So I just kept showing up to the pool, and then eventually I got okay. And as I got okay, I was getting invitations to like people's cottages. So people were inviting me to their house or to their cottage. I would swim their lake. They'd spot me with a boat or canoe, and then they'd feed me dinner or lunch. And like, this is just kind of a fun way to live, you know? So that kind of snowballed into like 20 or so lakes in one summer, the biggest being Lake Wanapitei. And Lake Wanapitei is a fundraiser. When I finished that one, there was news, it kind of blew up, and I'm like, well, here's an opportunity. Let's just do it bigger and better. And that's what led to Manitoulin.
In case nobody's caught along, so you started swimming in a pool, and then you got this brilliant idea that you should swim across a lake.
Yeah, the first was my friend's bay, and I had a panic attack just trying to swim across his bay, and I rode out that panic attack, but still finished that swim.
If you have a panic attack in water, you could drown, you know.
Yeah, I was on I freaked out. He sent me what is that called? Like little floater thing just to chill out till I stop freaking out. Then I let that go and finish the swim.
The swim. I've done some of that, I'm not gonna say open lake swimming, but I've done this okay, we're at the diving rock. Oh, and there's the shores over there. We should swim there. And sometimes you decide you're swimming there. It's this is a lot farther.
So you think? Yeah.
This is a lot farther than I thought it was gonna be. And then sometimes when you swim in lakes across bays, you get slimy things running against your legs, like weeds and things like that. And especially swimming in Lake Wanapitei, which is one of the deepest lakes. Apparently there's underground chambers in there where you could disappear forever. Are you scared of fish coming in and
I think
biting your toes or something?
There's a primal fear that's just always there, you know. I think fear keeps you safe, and then sometimes it's rational, sometimes it's not. Yeah. But when you're staring down to the blackness, there's that fear of what if something comes get me is there. In lakes, it's mostly unfounded. Yeah, right? There's nothing really in a lake that can really hurt you. No. Maybe minorly, but not like the ocean. No. Where the ocean, that fear is very valid, right?
Real. Yeah.
But most things will come easy things, and I'm kind of hard to eat, so I think that keeps you pretty safe.
Maybe you don't taste that good. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't taste that good. I guess to a great weight.
I can fight back pretty good, so most big things don't want to eat me.
What interesting things did you see while you were swimming? Any particular interactions with nature? Did you ever swim with a snapping turtle or something like that?
A lot of loons, a lot of birds. That was cool. During one of the swims on Lake Huron, that was just cool. There was just a bunch of loons, and they were all kind of singing, and they weren't scared. They let me, I guess I kind of had this calm, rhythmic pace. And they basically just let me come join them. They were pretty close. It was just really cool. That was cool.
That'd be neat.
A group of loons is called an asylum, so maybe this guy fits in, you know? So
that's perfect. I didn't know that.
Well, it's like a joke.
They have the craziest names for flocks of things or whatever, yeah.
I did see a pike once. That's probably the biggest fish I've seen. That was in Lake Nepawasi. I saw probably probably a pike, like decent sized pike underneath me.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, it was pretty neat.
Cool.
A lot of mostly just tiny, small fish.
So when the wind whips up and the waves are coming at you, and you must have swallowed a few gallons of lake water.
Yep.
And how do you stay afloat when you're like choking in waves? What's
I think
your strategy for
experience is a big one, right? Like
Yeah.
swimming in rough conditions at first is you're not used to it, right? The more you do it, the more you get used to it. You kind of flow with the water. Like you kind of, instead of fighting the water, you can kind of find a rhythm to the water. Just kind of join that, you know. So that's really cool when you're kind of in that sort of flow. I think like I'm thinking to a lake on a swim on Huron. Like I remember swimming like some maybe 3 to 5 footers, and I remember like doing a body scan and just being like super tight everywhere. And then like when you body scan, I was like, well, it's because I'm afraid. Right? And so when you're scared, you kind of tense up, and that makes you less good at swimming because you're denser if you're tight, and so you kind of sink a little bit. So at first, it's the awareness of what you're experiencing, and then once I had that awareness, then you draw from experience. Like I'd swum in bigger waves. Like if I didn't have the training, like it's normal to be that scared, right? But I had the experience. I swum in bigger waves, colder water, all of that. But I just repeated very gently in my mind, like you're safe, you're safe. And just that sort of very gentle inner voice, as you repeat that, then you can sense all your muscles kind of relax. And then once you have that sort of relaxed feeling, then you're floating and you're good. So you go pretty long without breathing. You know, you don't think you can, and it feels painful. But like, worst case scenario, you get slammed underwater by a wave. But I can do breath holds for several minutes. So like,
Did you practice breath holding before you did this? Or
I
just
did.
as you were
did.
swimming, you had the experience of having to hold your breath longer?
I did some weird training exercises. So one was just natural breath holds to try to expand the lung capacity. You can go like maybe, I think there's people who can do way longer than I can, but I'm at like 3 minutes.
Oh, wow.
But like there's like deep divers and stuff, they're just on a whole other level. But you can definitely train to expand your lungs. And then also like a weird training drill I would do is like how long can I go between breaths to have a rhythm. So like one I was doing front crawl, and every like 15 strokes or so I would breathe, you know. So just to train to like with that discomfort.
How many strokes before you breathe?
Like 15.
Oh wow.
I mean, like that's not my usual. Usually it's like every 3, but like to train, I would try to stretch that out more and more to see if I could expand that lung capacity. And I think it's getting comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, there's always that level of fear, anxiety that's always there. No matter how many swims I've done, I always have that fear and anxiety. But you get better at managing it. And as you have more experience, like for example, starting the expedition around Manitoulin, that I was heading out into the deep unknown. You know, like I slept maybe 2 hours before, the night before.
Let's back up a little bit. You had this idea in your head that you're going to swim all around Manitoulin Island.
Yeah.
In Lake Huron and Georgian Bay.
Yeah.
This was a good idea.
I don't know if good is the word I would put there. It was an idea.
Why did you come up with this idea? Like, it's about the coldest water in the Sudbury region.
Why
the coldest
Manitoulin?
water you could find is Lake Huron, and many people will do it, and it's okay, you can do it, but like, why?
I think there's several reasons. One was like one of my coolest swims was on Lake Huron. Like I just loved that swim. So I just loved the energy of the lake. It was in McGregor Bay.
Oh, okay.
So I swam
Did
across
you start
McGregor
from
Bay.
Whitefish Falls or something? Where'd you start on the
I
island?
started from my friend Ben's cottage,
Yeah.
who's my cousin's husband, and I just swam across his bay.
Okay.
And that was
How
just
far
a
was
cool
that?
swim. It was maybe like, it wasn't that long of a swim, a few K. Maybe like 4 or 5K or something.
How long
like
does it take to swim 4 or 5K?
Well, it depends. Like back then, I would swim about 2 kilometers an hour at like my calm pace. Now I swim like 3 kilometers an hour at my calm pace. My all-day pace now is like 3 kilometers an hour. But the more you do it, your body will adapt to pretty crazy stuff, you know? So one was just the love of Lake Huron. Like your Lake Huron is just awesome. So I think the love of the lake was number 1. Number 2 is like when I finished Wanapitei, I just loved the energy that put out into the world. You know, it was so cool. It inspired a bunch of people to do fundraisers, and like I just liked the energy that put out. So I wanted to put a similar energy out again. You know.
I'm going to ask a couple of weird questions, but you heard about the Japanese scientist, and I'm not going to remember his name, but he studies water, and they'll do like, we'll pray for water, and we'll set like positive energy, like you're beautiful, I love you, and then they'll freeze the water and it turns into these beautiful pure crystals.
Oh, weird.
And then they'll take another glass of water and they'll say, I hate you, you suck.
Really?
And then they take a picture of the crystals, and they're all malformed.
Weird.
Yeah, so you hadn't heard any of this, right?
No.
So I'm because I've heard this story about water, and how water is a ceremonial object in so many religions, right? Like, and even to this day, there are indigenous groups of women who will do a water walk. So they'll start at like the ocean, and they'll go up a stream, and they put the water in copper pails, and they pray for it, and they do water songs, and they really, with a lot of intention, recognize water as being like the Earth's bloodstream. You know, the
Cool.
flow of the Earth's circulation is through water. And you've spent a lot of time in water, and I was just wondering if you had ever heard of this practice, and now that you've just learned of this practice, what do you think of that?
I hadn't heard of the practice. I do know the indigenous hold a belief that like water is alive. You know, they believe that there's water spirit, like the water has a spirit. You know, which is a different viewpoint than what we have. I definitely feel that. I feel the energy of lakes. You know, I have really radical different feelings swimming in a chlorinated pool versus like out in the middle of Lake Huron. You know.
And describe that. What does that difference feel like in your body? The chlorine versus the non-chlorine.
Well, like I don't feel a connection to the pool as much. Like I do get in a meditative state in the pool, but I don't feel like connected to the pool. Whereas if I'm swimming in a lake, I'll get in a deep flow state, and like flow state is like an altered state of consciousness that usually happens when like you're pushing the limit, pushing the edge. You don't have to be doing that, but oftentimes that's a trigger for it. But like when you're in these really deep level flow states, like the boundary between you and the lake just kind of disappears. Like you lose that, and you just become one with it. You know?
It is kind of interesting because we're 70% water, or 75 or 80% water, and water changes form from like gaseous water to liquid water to ice water. And being so much time in the water, I do kind of wondered, what does it feel like? Do you feel really connected to water? Like I should imagine.
Yeah, 100%.
Otherwise, you wouldn't like it enough to spend like a whole day in it, or be in it before
you
dawn.
You're not always in these states, but you do experience like flow states, and that's why you do it. It's like, it's hard to describe unless I think everybody's had an experience of flow. It's called in the zone. It's another word for it. And there's different like depths to the experience. But basically one of them is like you completely lose track of time. So an easy one's like when you're with a good friend and you're just talking, and like all of a sudden it's 2 a.m. and you didn't see the time go by. That would be a flow state like through conversation.
Right.
You know? You can get through like physical activity or music or whatever. When you're like pushing the limits, like it sounds weird, but it's now starting to be scientifically documented. But when you're like pushing your body to the nth degree, your brain starts shutting circuits off. It sounds kind of weird, you know?
Yeah, no, it
because
makes
to
sense.
channel it into what you're doing,
Yeah.
and like this is kind of a weird thing to say, but like you have a sense of self, right? That is a circuit in your mind, and when you're at the very edge, your brain just turns that off, you know, and it's this sort of euphoric feeling. You just feel connected with all there is, you know. It's just like a cool.
You remind me of a story. I don't know if you've heard of this lady. Her name is Jill Bolte Taylor, and she's a brain scientist. And she suffered a stroke. And while she was suffering the stroke, so she's like, I've lost like all sensation on the one side of my body. She says, and if I wasn't a brain scientist, I would think I was having a stroke. Oh my God, I'm having a stroke.
Is this the TED Talk?
This is the TED Talk, Jill Bolte Taylor, right?
Going,
so I have her book. I have several copies of her book.
Cool.
I keep giving it to people. So I don't have it anymore. But she watched that whole thinking side of her brain. It went offline for the entire time that she was rehabilitating from her stroke. And so she wrote a book called My Stroke of Insight. It's the same TED Talk that you're thinking about. Also called My Stroke of Insight. And that's what she talks about. It's like when you turn that half of your brain off, the analytical one, the one that's always thinking, the one that thinks it's in charge, you feel like this flow state all the time, and you feel the interconnectedness of all things. And you know, there's lots of different ways we can tap into those states. Not that I've personally done it, but I've done lots of reading. But that's kind of how she felt too. You know, like this. The world is bigger and different than what we think we know that it is, based on our like real
everything's
life experience.
interconnected. For sure.
It's really interesting.
Well, those flow states, like you become one with the water, and that's the best feeling when you become one with the water. And I feel like different lakes have different sort of energies to them. And for me, Lake Huron's a very loving, maybe not for everybody, but for me, it's a very sort of loving sort of energy. I feel held by the water and connected to it for sure.
Well, I find that interesting when you talk about that, like moving with the water, flowing with the water. So I'll tell you the stupidest thing. Well, I did a lot of stupid things in my life, but okay, I was pregnant for my...
Me too. That's a good life, though. Yeah.
Well, you have stories to tell, right? If you do some dumb things. So my husband was working in Moosonee, and he was flying airplanes. He was doing his training up in Moosonee, Moose Factory. And I had a 1-year-old, a 1.5-year-old, whatever. Andrew was like 1, and I was pregnant for Adam. And I went to visit him up there, and the Moose River. So one of the rivers I always wanted to paddle is the Missinaibi River, and there's like a waterfall on it, and you end up at the Moose River, and you come out there. I never did this canoe trip, but I think it would be a wonderful experience to do it.
Cool.
So I flew up there, had the kids, and it was like 30 degrees in Moosonee. It was July. It was really hot. I was very pregnant, and I decided I was going to go swimming in the Moose River. Mike said, maybe you should talk to some locals about that. I'm like, nah, what do the locals know? It's 30 degrees. I'm really hot. It's probably never this hot up here. I'm pregnant. I'm going swimming. So what do? Go to the dock, dive in the Moose River, okay? So by the time I come up, if this is the dock and I dive here, I'm like over here. Like
the current was that strong?
The current was so strong,
Whoa.
like never occurred to me. But I thought I was gonna go swept out to sea. So like I popped out of the water and I knew I was in trouble, right?
Yeah.
My husband said my eyes were like this big, and I'm
Wow.
like paddling as fast as I can to the shore. Or to somewhere, like, and I know I've done enough paddling in rivers and stuff that you got to sort of move with the water. You can't. You're not going to win.
No, not with that level of current.
No, you're not going to win. And with that level of pregnancy, like, you got to find a solution to this problem fast, because I was pretty ginormous. But I really, I gained a lot of respect for the force and the power of water in an experience like that. And so I really can't imagine any of your experience, but that is just like my one sort of. I was terrified, but I was not afraid.
What's the end of that story?
I got out. I don't know.
How did you get out, though? You just got
you're
out?
going downstream, and so you just keep shifting towards shore, and eventually you're going to get somewhere. And my husband was like running along the shore or whatever. It was a pretty long dock from what I remember.
Yeah.
But he grabbed my hand and he pulled me out, and I was like so grateful. But I learned a lot. Like
the water's powerful. For sure.
It's powerful in a way that you don't know. And so I've been in boats in those kind of 4 or 5 foot waves, being sort of terrified, but there you are swimming as a soul, like human, going with the flow, trying not to drown. I'm the captain to see and
keep me safe. I had crew with me too.
But how the crew must have been terrified in a boat.
I mean, you probably could get scared sometimes. Yeah, sometimes it's harder on the boat than it is on the swimmer. Depends on the kind of waves there are. But like, there's a big power behind water for sure, and that's also what gives a sense of awe. Yeah. When you just see like this big, huge expanse of water.
Especially like
that just gives you awe, like.
So you started a little current and you went sort of, towards Wiki.
Yeah.
And then you rounded around Wiki.
And I didn't make it all the way around Wiki. I got hypothermic.
Yeah, so you didn't get all the way through. Yeah. Were you on the south side on the ocean?
No, I was about halfway past the eastern side. It was about halfway the eastern side.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where I was, but I was on about halfway point on the eastern side of the island.
I found it fascinating for you to talk about currents and lakes, because I didn't realize that
really
there were
strong
actually
currents, especially Wanapate. Yeah. It's like
there's
basically in lakes there's like invisible rivers, especially on like bigger lakes. Like if you meet a current that sometimes it's like you cruise and sometimes you can swim and get pushed backwards, And then kind of funny, to train, I did one training swim on Vermilion River. Okay. And I swam up. You know, that's the lazy river. People do like the lazy river now. Yeah. I did the opposite. On lazy river. swam up it, yeah. But I think most of the time these currents can kind of shift. But if you got one that's so powerful, you just got to fight against it and hope that it changes or try to get out of it somehow.
Well, I know in rivers they tell you, if there's a rock, the flow will go strong this way, but there's an eddy and it'll push you back.
Yeah, there's definitely like land formations definitely affect the currents for sure. Or like islands. Like for example, where the swing bridge is at, there's a huge current because it's like a choke point, right? So the water kind of forces to go quicker. And then it changes with the direction of the wind there too. So the current changes directions, and if it changes really quickly, that's what creates whirlpools, right? It's going one way and then it goes the other way. Sometimes you'll have like tiny whirlpools, but if the wind is really strong, then you can have some kind of.
Do you ever get stuck in one of those?
A whirlpool? No,
never.
No.
Missed that one. All right,
I don't think they would. I don't know. Like probably the ocean, you could get some big ones. There, I'm not sure how dangerous it would be to a swimmer, but it's probably dangerous. I was scared to swim in that stretch of water, so I didn't know what to expect. But I had the boat there with me, so.
How did it go? Went okay?
It went okay. I didn't think I'd be able to outpower that current. 'Cause as I was swimming into a little current, I saw I was swimming against the wind, and I knew from my research I meant against the current. And I'm like, what if I swim all day just to fail? And I'm like, well, that's not in your control. You know, you just swing your arms.
Keep going.
So swing them, and then it felt awesome because that was the deepest flow state of my life. Like that. Yeah. That's probably the swim that felt the best to me, just because everything that went into that. And after swimming for more than 10 hours, I was outpowering that current, which just felt cool to do something you don't think you're capable of, right? Because I was like, I can't outpower that current, and then to do it after swimming for more than 10 hours, like that's a pretty cool feeling, you know?
That is pretty cool. Yeah, that is pretty cool. It's kind of amazing. Well, this doesn't compare, but it's reminding me. I did treetop like rope climbing stuff like that. So I was in Nanaimo or something like that.
Cool.
And you know, I'm not a young person anymore. I'm not really old, but you know, I hiked myself up these rope ladders, and I had to get through this. And no one's rescuing you. Like you got to rescue yourself. Like you're gonna pull yourself across those things, and you're gonna not fall. And you know, when I finished that, well, you use every muscle in your body, and it's not like I trained for it. The kids wanted to go rope, whatever this was, treetop rope expedition of some kind. But when you do something hard that you don't think you can do, and it's harder than you thought, it's like it makes you feel like proud. It makes you feel like, wow,
you, for sure.
I can trust my body to take care of me, you know. And it's an interesting way to feel after. And I thought, wow, what a nice experience to have, you know, succeeded at that. So I can sort of almost feel how you felt. Yours is like a 10 times amplified that, but still,
you saw where I started, you know, I only started getting active in my 30s, you know, so that people compare to what I've done, but like, I think everybody's got the capability, but not everybody should do it, you know, like Manitoulin is not the most balanced thing to do, and like, I had to recover from that, took a pretty heavy toll on my body.
Yeah, I bet.
I think it's like explore, right? And push your boundary a little bit. But like when I hopped in the pool, that was not in my realm of possibility or belief, you know? So just wherever you're at, just explore and push the boundary a little bit. If you keep pushing the boundary a little bit, that's what growth is, and it grows into something big, you know?
So today is March 7th or 6th, I think, and it's like most of the snow is gone, which means the lake will be ice-free soon. So where are you going first? What's your first lake?
I hadn't swam much. Like I kind of was pretty burned out after. I didn't realize as I was in it, but as soon as I stepped back, I think like I was really lacking social connection, because to train at that intensity, you're not talking to anybody if you're doing these marathon swims. If you're swimming, like at my peak training, I was swimming like maybe several hours a day. Yeah. And you're just so exhausted after that you can't socialize properly. So I think to train at that intensity, it's a little isolating, you know. So
but you want to go for a swim like as soon as the ice is out? Are you like ready for like a little dip?
I'll probably go for some. Like I'll go for fun ones. I think, you know. Right now I don't have the desire to do any of these big ones. I've switched it to yoga and rock climbing. And those rock climbing's got like the social aspect for me. Like I can talk to somebody as I'm climbing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's what I need at this point in my life, is a little bit more of connection. So I never say never, you know, but I'm just open to what the future kind of brings, you know. So just from swimming 25 meters to Manitoulin, that was about a year and a half, you know. So like right now I'm rock climbing, yogaing, and I'll probably do some small swims. I've done a lot of coaching. Like a lot of people approach me, like, how do you plan for this? And I kind of love paying that forward and pumping them up. So I've done a lot of coaching and guiding. So
well, and it's interesting because you highlight in your book some of the important role of the mentors you had and the people 100%. And the friend and support network. So in the context of you know, darkness to light, let's talk about the role of how people helped with that, and people who might be struggling with some darkness in their life. You know, if you have any encouragement or words of support or advice into expanding that network a little bit outside of themselves, you know.
I think some people are born into one and some people don't have one, right? Yeah. And it is a hard thing to build and develop if you don't have any of it. That's the hard truth of our society. Some people are extremely isolated right now, you know. And when you're unwell, then it's hard to build that for yourself. So that's when it gets kind of nasty, you know. I think you can build it, just to know that. These, like, you know, you've got seeds, you got a bunch of seeds, but it starts very small, you know, and it grows into something you want with time. But at first, it's not going to be what you want. Like any tree, if you want apples, you plant the seed. It's going to be a while before you get apples.
Yeah, like 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, hopefully it won't take 7 or 8 years, but it's going to take time to develop that social support system for yourself. Time, energy, resources. You have to consciously water that and develop it. So it does take time. And then when you're struggling that much, it's really hard to open up and share with people. Professional services like therapy, that's an excellent place to start. I've done a lot, and that was a game changer for me.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in that really dark mind space, you're just not thinking right. You know, it feels so true because it's coming from within your own mind, and it's hard to create a distance from those thoughts. Sometimes you need a little bit of help with that. You know, so therapy is definitely a game changer. Friends, just friends will. You don't see yourself the same way other people see you, right? So you need to surround yourself with people who see you, the good in you, right? Because if you have the opposite, sort of this toxic environment, that's destructive, right?
Yeah.
But if surround yourself with people who see the good in you, especially when times are rough, that's huge. Like, that's just massive. I think everybody needs that. Not everybody has that, but everybody can have
get
that.
it. Yeah, for sure.
So I think I've been very consciously investing in that in the past couple of years for myself and trying to build and grow that.
It's interesting because I work in a pharmacy.
Yeah.
And a lot of the approach is like, well, this medication's going to solve your problem. And I think sometimes we don't have enough conversation around the importance of the social connection.
Social connection is massive.
In feeling like you have something to contribute, that either somebody else needs you or some project needs you, like that whole interconnectedness. And I think there is a really high level of shame, or I'm not good enough, or why am I suffering so much, and how did I deserve this? And in reinforcing those thoughts all by yourself, like, you have to crack the door open enough for somebody else to smile in that door, that little space to kind of reach you, because isolation, I don't think solves much of this problem.
No.
Even though a lot of solitude in the water.
They're not problems that solve
Yeah.
quickly.
Right.
You know, we often think of spiraling downwards, like you think of that vicious spiral, like when you're in pain because you're in pain.
Yeah.
That's or you're anxious because you're anxious, or you're depressed.
Or you're not
'cause
getting enough
depressed.
sleep, and your
Yeah.
pain is worse, and now you can't sleep, and it's
So
like these
that
things.
cycle spirals down really quick. So what you can do is, first of all, stop that spiral, stop the downward trend, stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
You know, and they're not problems that can solve in a day or two, but you can switch the direction of that spiral. You can start going the other way.
What did you do? What would you say was your break, and your, like, how did you apply the break to the downward spiral? What was your
Well, for me, it
first
comes
or
to get me
one or two
like
things?
different times in my life. Like the last episode was between Wanapitei and Manitoulin. I had a very big depression. And for me, it's like I can't speak or move or nothing. I'm just kind of trapped in my own body. It's just this horrible, hellish place to be. Meaning and purpose is a big one. Because you're like, what meaning or purpose can I have if I can't move or I can't speak? Right? So I kind of visualized myself from a future perspective to give that present moment a meaning. I visualized writing this book. I visualized my swim. I visualized helping my people where I was. And I think if you focus, you have to focus on yourself. But if you expand, when you're in a crap ton of pain, it's so easy to just focus on that. You really have to broaden your perspective as much as you can, and to realize all this pain that you're experiencing now. First of all, I'll just acknowledge that, because when you're there, you don't want to hear anything else. So
Yeah.
that's hard, you know, that's okay. It sucks. You can get better. You will get better. When you do, now you're equipped to help other people. Now you've given that piece a meaning and a purpose.
Yeah.
Like you said, I think we have this sort of culture where it's like, here's a pill, you're going to be better. I was really surprised to see, like, recently I saw a study on MAID, and the main reason like medical assistance in dying, and the main reason people chose to end their life, the like resounding close to 90% was lack of meaning, which I thought was like, whoa, I thought it'd be the pain,
Yeah.
you know, but pain was actually 3%,
Oh, wow.
which these people must be in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
But it was more the lack of
Yeah.
meaning that was being taken away, which I was like, whoa, you know, that stat hit hard.
How important is that, eh? Like, I never read those statistics, and so thanks for sharing that with me. And yeah, it's sort of in my experience also, it is that someone needs you to do something, that meaning, right? Like, I matter to someone. I'm part of something. I'm connected to some way to something. Yeah, interesting. I think that yeah, there's a whole big conversation around MAID, but that's a really interesting statistic I wasn't aware
I
of.
don't like throwing stuff out there, so that's
Yeah.
definitely worth
Yeah.
looking up, you know, so I don't have
Yeah, for sure.
I always question what I put out because I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% on those stats, you know, so I don't want to mislead anybody.
Yeah, one this
But that's what based off memory. You know?
yeah, interesting. So you talked about the book as being one of the things that you sort of had, you know, I could look forward to this at some point. When I'm better, I can look forward to
so
sharing my story.
I looked
tell
forward
me a
to
little bit
healing.
about how the book came about as an idea and how you actually finished it. So I'm curious
Sure,
about
yeah.
that.
I was writing the book as I was training to swim around Manitoulin. And the first iteration of the book is so different from what it is now. Because I was kind of writing it to train my mind, and I was writing it from a perspective of having successfully swam around Manitoulin, you know.
Yeah, okay.
And it's also like a way of training my mind and
Yeah,
processing
yeah.
stuff. But when I started writing, like, I wasn't a good writer at all. You know, I started
Okay.
swimming, I was not a good swimmer. I couldn't swim 25
Start
meters.
from somewhere. You're going to get better. 10,000 hours, right?
Yeah. I think, like, we tend to avoid things because we're not good at them. But if it's new, you're not going to be good at it. So just embrace that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started writing, I was not very good, but I would just sit down and write a page every day. So if you just write one page every day, that's 360 pages a year. That's a lot of writing. And then the quality of my writing got so much better. Like I remember the first draft. When I read the end of the book versus the start, I'm like, whoa, I'm actually good here.
Wow, he's a good writer over here.
Not so much over here, you know?
Yeah.
So I rewrote everything. So I had to take a little break between the first and second draft because, first of all, the second draft, I pretty much rewrote all those early chapters. And I was hacking and slashing so many chapters. So I had to take a step back because I was like, all this time is wasted. But it's not, because I got to be a better writer. And then I shifted the narrative. I'm like, it's going to be a better final product. But for me, it's like, if you're going to write a book, do it for you.
Yeah.
You know, do it for you. For me, it was healing and catharsis. You know, those are the two words that I would use for me. And then if you do it for you, then you hopefully have given something that other people need as well, right? So I would just sit down, write, and then I didn't know what I was doing. But when I started swimming, I couldn't swim 25 meters, and then swam halfway around Manitoulin. So I'm like, I don't know how to write a book. I'll figure it out as I go, and it'll be a good book by the time I'm done. I'll find people to help me, guide me.
How long did it take you, like, from okay, so first you thought about, I'm going to write a book, and then how long did you convince yourself to actually, like, put write on paper or in a typewriter or something? Like, how long did you think about it before you actually started doing it? I'm just curious.
I mean, I've always wanted to write a book, but like the first book I started writing, I had a title, and then a book came out with the same title.
Oh,
So I was
so
just
ruined
like,
that.
I was like, well, but at least there too, like that book never got published, but at least it gets your ideas going, it makes you a better writer.
So you liked writing, like,
Yeah,
as a
I think you have
student.
to-
So
I
what
think
did you
it's like-
study in school?
I didn't like writing as a student,
Oh, okay,
actually.
all right.
I studied physics, believe it or
Okay,
not.
physics, all right. Perfect.
My roommate would correct my essays, and he would laugh at my writing. So I wasn't a good writer, you know? Because physics, you're not writing much, you know? But I
Solving
think
equations.
after each swim, I would write like a meditation. So I think that's where I fell
okay.
in love with writing. Like
Yeah.
after these big swims, I would write a meditation to kind of like distill my learning. So I was
No,
kind
do
of
that
writing
when I
meditations.
travel, if
you
I'm
know?
leaving a country or whatever, or I've been on vacation, I always try to write a few things about my
Yeah.
impressions of the whatever it
Just
was
to
I did
sort
or
your
what
thoughts,
I learned.
right?
Yeah, and when my kids travel with me, I always give them a piece of paper, and they have to either draw a picture or write. Now they're older now; they can use words, but when they were little, it's like try to write something about our memory. Anyways, I interrupted you, but
No.
I like that idea of, you know, I understand that idea of after you do a big thing to debrief by writing your thoughts. on
Yeah,
paper.
it helps
It's
you
nice.
remember it, right? It helps
Yeah,
you
for
crystallize
sure.
that memory
Yeah.
and absorb some lessons, you know? So you said 10,000 hours, which I agree with, but if you have somebody who already has 10,000 hours teaching you, and if you have mindful learning versus unmindful learning, there's a drastic difference. And then there are studies that show that flow state also accelerates your learning. So I think it can be a lot quicker if you have the right systems and the right people in place, you know?
So you were writing your meditative thoughts after your swims, and then you thought, when am I putting this into a book? When did that idea sort of come up? I'm going to write a book about
So that
this.
started like after the Wanapitei swim. That's when I started writing. So it started from depression and me just wanting to heal from that. You know, so when I first started writing this book, I was depressed.
Yeah.
Like the very first version of it. And I was writing in coffee shops just depressed, you know?
But at least you got to a coffee shop.
I did,
How was
yeah.
it to get to the coffee shop from your bedroom or whatever? Like,
well, at first, at the very lowest, like you just can't do anything. You know, it's just this horrible place to be. You just got to gradually set the goals bigger and bigger and accept where you're at temporarily. Because like when I'm in these super depressive states, like I know I have this body capable of doing this crazy athletic stuff, but when I'm in the super depressive state, like I can't brush my own teeth. Like I can't.
So do the people who love you in your life, what do they do that helps you recover or hurts your recovery? Do you understand because a lot of well-intentioned people will do or say things that actually hurt they're getting in the way of the process of improvement. Do you have advice for the people who love someone who's depressed? What can these people do to improve, or is there anything that we can do on this?
I don't like giving like blanket covering advice because I think every individual is unique.
For sure, I get it. Yeah.
For me, I think we have a society that just denies suffering.
Yeah, we don't want to suffer, and we want to be young and beautiful for a whole life, and we only want to have highs, and we don't want to have any lows, none, zero.
Just we hide it away, right?
Yeah,
like
that's true.
Put people in hospitals, put people in old age homes, we put suffering out of sight, out of mind, pretend it doesn't, but we don't know how to be there for other people who are suffering. Yeah. We're not taught that skill explicitly. Yeah. And I think when someone is depressed, the truth is you can't take away that pain. When they're there, you can. If someone's going through grief or heartache or has this sort of wound, you cannot take away the pain, not in that moment.
Should we feed them and offer them water? Like, what should we do? Like,
well, I think those are concrete.
Yeah.
One is just allowing them to be, allowing that. I say, one of my sayings is darkness denied deepens. So when people deny your pain, they're deepening that very pain. Okay. And I think when you're in this level of pain, people don't, not everybody can be there for you, sure, but people turn a blind eye to it, pretend it's not happening.
They don't know what to do, right? Honestly, they just don't know what to do.
So darkness denied deepens. So if you're denying that someone's in pain, when someone says, I'm in pain, and say, no, you're not, don't be in pain. If I say, like, don't be cranky, how does that make you feel?
It makes me crankier.
That is the worst. Like, has that ever worked for you? No. Everyone says, don't be cranky, but that makes the crankier person crankier. Yeah. You say, like, don't be in pain, you're amplifying, your intent is good, so I want to look at your good intention, but your impact is not. Most of the time, that'll amplify the pain. So you have to create a space for that pain. So darkness deny deepen, darkness acknowledge dissipate. I think it's seasons, right? All emotions are seasons. There's some seasons that are hard, but they all pass, right? But to say the season's not there, that's not helpful or useful. So I think it's allowing that to be, saying, I see you. Like, that's a very simple sentence. I see you. I care about you. It's okay to be struggling. Like, because that's what, as soon as you say don't do that, well, then you're denying their experience. They don't feel seen. They don't feel heard. They don't feel understood. And that just amplifies suffering. But if, like, you gotta create space for that. That's a hard skill to develop. But I think things just naturally heal once you bring light to it. You know, once you allow it to be, and like it will heal, but not now, just with time.
I think patience, right?
Sense?
Being impatient for the thing to shift. That's some of the message of what I'm hearing, is that we just need to have some patience and understand that it'll pass, but not right away. Like, it's going to take some time, and we have to have some patience for this.
I think so too. Yeah, you want to like spiral upwards, right? Because when you're in the bottom, like wounds take time to heal, right? So depression or something, that's an internal wound. Yeah. They don't heal like that. At least mine haven't. You know, maybe they can, but not for me. But I think just allowing time to heal, knowing that you will heal, giving that, even that dark piece, I think that's kind of the point of the book, is giving that dark piece a meaning. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I think that's why I'm good at giving hope, because I've been in despair, right? So the fact I can help people who are where I was, because I developed the tools to get better. So now I can give those tools. I can't make people get better instantly. I'm not going to promise something that I can't, but I can give people hope. I'll let people know that it's possible for you to be better. And then start taking those slow actions, like just got out of bed today, like just brush your teeth today, like eat one meal today. You know, these don't sound like big things, but when you're that level of depressed, they're huge. And then if the next day you just eat 2 meals, because when you're that depressed, even eating is a struggle. Like, you don't even want to eat. Like, just bringing the food to your mouth feels like the energy of running a full marathon. And when you're that low, it's like, how the hell can I get better? You know, that's despair. When you think, no matter what I do, I'm going to be here forever, that's what despair looks like. And so you don't stop doing things, you stop trying things, because you've tried everything and it's not working. But if you just try something and you just chip away at it, you do this little small something every time, having a support system that understands that, I think, is huge. I think we don't have that. We don't empathize with people who have mental health struggles, because it's hard to empathize with something you don't understand.
It's true.
You know, so we're not educated on that. I think that's another reason why I wrote this, given awareness, like, what does depression look like? And that's a whole spectrum too, right?
I actually was unaware that there were catatonic states of depression. Like, until I read your book and talked to you, I didn't even know that was possible.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm in a healthcare field.
I didn't know it was possible till I lived it. You
Yeah,
know? So,
exactly. So it's that whole scale that you talk about, you know, it's important, you know, for us to understand what is it, you know, and how can we support. I loved your book.
Oh, thank you.
I think I messaged you when I landed in Sweden, and I said, Matthew, like, I finished your book, and wow, like, it was, it was easy to read. I learned a lot of things. I've learned a lot of things about swimming and water, and, you know, I thought it was so inspirational, how much you changed from here to here. Yeah. Like, just your physical state and your attitude of, you know, well, I can't do anything, to look what I can do, like, I can do almost anything. And you did, like, what you've done is pretty amazing. And you know, your pictures in here are pretty impactful, like, you know, what you look like before you started swimming and what you look like today.
Yeah, feel like I used to weigh probably 80 pounds or more. I used to not be able to run a single kilometer or anything, you know, So
that's, you know, that's so, it's so inspiring and wonderful to see that example. And I just didn't know what to expect when I read it, because I had just met you. Like, I think I met you, like, I don't know, a month before. I said, Matthew, make sure your book is printed before I go away. And he showed up, like, in 2 days before I flew. And I was like, and I was able to, and I didn't meet your friend, but I delivered your book to your friend in Stockholm. So she's gotten it, so that's brilliant. And so I have a signed copy, and if you want a signed copy, you have to come on March 23rd.
Yeah, come party.
And you'll have some tea and biscuits and whatever.
We'll have soup and snacks. We'll have snacks.
We're having something to eat for sure, because that's one way to make new friends, is by sharing food with them. But this book is now in the pharmacy, and I want you to, this is like the closing sort of chapter, is now you finish the book and you're trying to get the message out around how to support people, or that people who are in depression can recover, and we're making this book available. And what's our strategy behind the books?
What do you mean?
I want, well, you've given me a case of books, and what are we doing with the books?
So
right?
I guess this is probably the main reason I want to self-publish, because I'm giving away a lot of books, which I felt like a traditional publisher would not go for. So for the model of the book is pay what you may. So I just give it to people all the time. I give it to random strangers. I just give. And it comes back to me in really weird, unexpected ways. So when people say, what's it cost? The answer is nothing. It costs you nothing. It's whatever you want to give, and you're not under any obligation to do anything. And then I'll often give some books to people like yourself. Like you, I gave you a case of books, and I said, you keep 100% of the profit. You keep all of it. But here's the catch. You got to do something good with it. You know, you got to kind of live the message of the book, do something kind and charitable with it. And then once that's done, invite me back for coffee or tea, and then I get to to share that, because the next book's about joy, and I'm already kind of living that now, just giving away random books. People look at me like kind of weird when I just give them a book, but then they're happy after. And it's led to like some really random weird things. Like the post office would be an odd example, because I'll mail out a lot of books from the post office, but I've given one of my books to each of the post ladies.
Okay.
And I didn't get anything back, but now every time I get there, they're all smiles. And now going to the post office is fun, you know? So, yeah.
So we have a case of books. We have 30 books. I've already actually sold one, and I'll tell you what happened. The reason that book got sold, this is a kind of a crazy
I'm curious.
story,
I haven't heard this.
no, you haven't. I hadn't told you this yet. So it was one of the girls that works here. I said to her, "Could you please enter this book into our, there's a barcode, and we want to be able to track what we've collected from the sale of this book or the giving away of this book." And she said she held the book, and there was so much positive energy coming from the book that she couldn't put it down, and she bought it. She was the first person to buy a book.
Weird.
I'm like,
I love
so
that.
I was giving her other items in the pharmacy, right? Like, hold this, what did you feel like? But she said, no, there was just so much lightness and positivity, and she just couldn't put the book down. So it's interesting.
Thank you for sharing that.
Well, I thought you'd like that story.
That is a
and I
great
didn't
story.
make that
I love
up. That is
that. I love
actually
that.
a true
I
story
love that.
from like yesterday. Yesterday we worked together, her and I. And I just want to encourage people. It's a really great read. It's a beautiful story. I
didn't pay her to say this either.
No, he didn't. I got free books though. Free books. And I really encourage you. I mean, writing a book and completing a book is a really big deal, and I celebrate you for doing that. And I celebrate you for like.
I just want to party. Yeah, March 23rd, I just want to party, so come party.
Come party. I'm going to be here. He's going to be here. We're going to have some books.
Gonna be
We're
a
going
fun
to have
time.
some food.
Yeah.
Gates is is the chef in charge, so we'll be eating something absolutely delicious. And this video will be up here in perpetuity, so people can watch it later. And if they want to learn more about you before they come in, they can watch this video. It'll be up, and they can read your book. And we'll meet again here on the 23rd. Do you have any closing comments? Did we hit all the topics?
I came in with
hoping?
open mind, so yeah, it's just come party. That's my closing remark. Come have fun on the 23rd.
Have fun on the 23rd. All right. Thanks, everyone. And thank you, Matthieu, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job.
That was
Well
fun.
done. All right.
Yeah.